Welcome to today's webinar, Expanding the Opportunity Pipeline, Getting from Contact to Quote in Record Time. This is the first webinar in our month-long series on extending the value of Salesforce. And today's guest is InsideSales.com. Today's speakers are Anil, who is VP of Business Development at Inside Sales, and Chris Jones, who is SVP of Alliances and Partners at PROS. Here's a little bit of background information before we get into the main presentation. To capture growth, sales effectiveness is a top CSO objective. As you can see, increasing sales effectiveness is the main goal of CSOs according to the survey from CSO Insights. Here are some of the key areas, including increasing sales effectiveness, capturing new accounts, and down the bottom, optimizing deal size and reduce sales cycle time. Our numbers that aren't particularly high right now, but they're starting to creep up as we're noticing in the field. And they tie very much directly into sales effectiveness, and they will be also a big component of today's session. If you look at CRM in general, you'll see results that aren't surprising from the survey data from CSO Insights, mainly that CRM is a forecasting tool, it's a communication tool, it's an administrative tool, and it's very task-oriented. It wasn't initially built to be a tool or a platform that was going to necessarily on its own drive revenue and margin increase. As you can see at the bottom, fewer than 20% are seeing revenue win rate or cycle improvements, and no one is seeing margin improvements from CRM alone. However, as part of the Salesforce ecosystem that has grown in recent years and around CRM in general, there are all kinds of tools that tie into to your CRM instance that can really help address some of these issues in a way CRM alone cannot. The first wave of Salesforce automation tools really focused on automation and sales efficiency, which is a lot of what native CRM does on its own. The second wave was really enhancing the reporting, getting those nice-looking dashboards that you could show to the C office, and also kind of enabling a mobile sales team. Now we're in the midst of a third wave, which is really focused on analytics, especially predictive analytics. Smarter customers and shorter deal cycles mean reps need a full arsenal to accelerate sales and beat the competition. You need everything at your disposal these days. And this is so important that Salesforce itself, if anyone attended Dreamforce 2014 would attest when they announced their Wave initiative, is becoming a big part of Salesforce. Essentially their fourth pillar, which is the Analytics Cloud, which is joining the Marketing Cloud, the Service Cloud, and the Sales Cloud as the cornerstone of the Salesforce platform outside of CRM. So how do we use data in the Salesforce platform to change the game? With that, I'd like to turn it over to Anil, who will take you through some tips on how to actually discover leads, build out contacts, and then accelerate contacts for your inside or field sales teams. Anil?
Excellent. Thank you. I want to talk to you a little bit about inside sales and what inside sales is all about, as well as data sourcing and analytics all the way through to contact strategies. So first, let me talk to you about inside sales. Inside sales offers the first comprehensive sales acceleration platform that creates high-performance sales teams with breakthrough technology. We're based in Provo, Utah, and have a platform that really helps enable the sales acceleration. So if you look, we've got 15 in the middle of the page there. We've got 15 billion sales interactions that we capture, and that number grows every day. And through machine learning, we're able to conduct real-time analysis to really come and drive the sales acceleration platform and just sales acceleration in general. So if we could flip to the next slide, I'll talk to you a little bit about the maturity of the data analytics space and where we're headed. So if you look at this continuum, on the bottom left is kind of the foundational insights, and this is where a lot of companies are today. This is a rear view look in the mirror of what companies are doing when they buy data. And this is historical trends. People will go back and look and say, okay, what did the company have in revenues in 2013? This is a archaic way to look at data analytics, and you can see as we go through the maturity of it, the evolution and the ability to take enterprise-wide action. So the next wave through this is a little bit about I know you as a company, and really the big key here is the integration of transactional level data. So then it's looking at month-over-month trends and being able to kind of forecast the next level of trends. Tells you a little bit about why did something happen. For example, you'll be able to see here that, is this customer prospect a Salesforce user or not? Tell me about, pay-per-click. Tell me about how much they're buying in pay-per-click. What keywords are they bidding on? Really starts giving you a little bit of information about the customer. The holy grail of data analytics is in that box there, where you can start predicting and you can tell a customer prospect what is going to happen before they even know it's going to happen. If a customer's had, an easy example, revenue trends of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, you can almost guess their next one's going to be 13. But that's an easy example. But when you start looking at kind of the finer points of their business around, PPC trends is an easy one to look at. You start looking at the finer points of those trends, you can start going to the customer and start prescribing their behavior. All of this is great, but what really happens when you get into that top right circle is you can take enterprise-wide action. You can then conduct and direct marketing, customer care, all these other organizations that help support the sales group. You can start driving their behaviors based upon what we think is going to happen. So next slide, please. So this is a little bit about data attributes. Again, a simplistic slide to just talk about attributes. A heartbeat versus a series of heartbeats. Looking at a prospect and looking at their revenue in a single year tells you one thing. Looking at them over a period of 10 years and are they growing? Are they shrinking? What are their margins looking like over a period of time? Tells you a lot about a company and gives you a different level of insight versus looking at them on a single basis. Proxies to expand TAM. So many times we open up and we say, our total addressable market is X, but we haven't taken different slices of that to really expand, maybe correlated industries, maybe, looking at different opportunities that surround the ones that we're directly involved in. And then the last piece is predictive analytics, and I'll give you a great example of this. I worked with a company who, the first thing I did is I went in and kind of talked to them about their churn. They were extremely high churn. And one of the things we talked about was their, likelihood to churn and their ability to forecast it. And their average customer tenure was about 6 months. And, the customer had to notify within 30 days, or at 30 days, they give them 30 days notice that they were leaving. And so as we sat down and talked, one of the things I asked them is, hey, once you get that 30-day notice, what do you do? And their comment back to me was, we beg for the customer to stay. We throw offers at them. We try to spike their program. We try to drive performance. And my feedback was, that's too late. If you've got an average life cycle of 6 months, at month 2, what are the attributes of that customer that you can say with a 90% confidence are going to help drive and retain this customer, or are going to predict likelihood to churn? And then what do you do about it, right? How do you give those offers in month 2 or 3 instead of waiting to month 6? And the same thing happens on the propensity to buy, the flip side of it, right? If you've got a program that is running extremely well in month 2 or 3, what are the actions that you can take that are going to say, hey, this customer is going to buy something and are going to buy more from you at month 6 or 8 or 10? What do I pitch them, right? If you think about a new inbound lead coming up to one of your inbound representatives with a recommender, right? That this customer is profiled as X, Y, and Z, and in all likelihood, they're going to buy product A. Don't pitch product C. Next slide, please. So I'd like to spend a few minutes on here around data syndication, and this is something that, over the past couple of years has really become a little bit of a myth in terms of how people execute on this. So data sourcing, this is simply buying lists. I would recommend a couple of things through here. One, as you buy these lists, dedicate a person, a team, a quarter of a person. Don't make this a part of someone's job. Ensure that you have a dedicated resource or a person's dedicated time towards this. And when you buy lists, the first thing you should do is you should sit down and look at your current customer base. Evaluate what's worked. Evaluate your sweet spot. What verticals work for you? What geos work for you? What doesn't work? What employee size work for you? What SIC codes? There's so many questions that you can ask about your current customer base to turn around and say, hey, here are the type of things that I want to buy. So then if you follow this all the way through, the concept of database hygiene, there are plenty of third-party tools that sit within Salesforce, sit on top of Salesforce, that sit outside of Salesforce. This is more about deduping and keeping your database clean as you go through this process. Nothing can frustrate a inbound or outbound organization more than dirty data. From a dedupe perspective, there's multiple ways to go about this. Some of the best practices I've seen have been, kind of multi-step dedupe criteria matches. And then following it through, once you get the data, what do you do with it? I recommend a kind of three-tiered approach where you buy from a primary vendor, and that's normally a firmographic vendor. It'll tell you a lot about a company, where they're located, some contact points, but more about just, the company's firmographic info. The secondary vendor that is more contact-centric, excuse me. So contact-centric in the sense that now, okay, here are the profiles that I'm looking for. I'm looking for the CEO, COO, CFO. Here are the 5 different people I'm looking for. And then lastly, a specialty type vendor that will supplement all of these. And when you rub all these data sources up against each other, you're going to get incremental prospects on the way down. Vendor number 2 will have some prospects or some companies that vendor 1 did not. And so through that process, you pick up incremental. And then on the way back up, you're able to append that data with additional information. Vendor number 2 may have zip code where vendor number did not. And really, when you shake all these out against each other, what this lets you do is build a best-of-breed record. And it really helps enable your representatives to change the tone of the sales call. So now you've enabled, your sales guy or your BD team to come back and instead of asking, on a cold call, can I speak with the CEO? They can ask for, hey, can I speak with Jim Smith? I see that you recently upgraded to Salesforce. We're a premier partner of Salesforce. We integrate right into the tool. They're proactively pitching, not just fishing. And then the final step of this is the optimization as you work through this. So you will see a 15 to 20% uplift in this optimization piece. Getting the right leads to the right reps. You don't want your new guys, a guy that's 30 days into the business. You don't want that guy cutting his or her teeth on a lead that is scored at 100, right? On a prospect that is ready to buy. You don't want to give that to your new guy. You want them to cut their teeth and kind of get their pitch out and get the marbles out of their mouth on a lead that's lower scored. And as reps succeed, you will start seeing giving them the right leads will kind of fuel the fire, and you'll see a pretty big uplift. This last piece is probably the most important to me, and this is kind of the closed loop process of analyzing the lead sources. Now that you've got all the way through this, what will happen is you'll be able to see, hey, I bought a lead source from Dun and Bradstreet. And as you go through this, you'll be able to say, I got 10 closes out of this. And then I bought the same lead, or I bought another set of leads from any other company, company A, and I got 50 leads. Well, then you can go back and really start evaluating your cost per lead, cost per close, conversion metrics, all those great things, and then lets you go back through the sourcing process. And it's a great closed loop process if you're disciplined about it, and that's why I highly recommend you put a person that's dedicated towards this. Next slide, please. Excellent. So a couple tips around sales acceleration. I get it. This is a little bit of an eye chart, but we have multiple tips around once you get these contacts or prospects loaded into your database in either a dialer or you're having your guys, just manual dial. There are a couple tips that you need to look at, and most companies just take a follow the sun mentality. Yeah, I'll load one coast first, and then I'll just work all the way through, and they think they've nailed it. In reality, yes, that's a part of it, but there's there's another set of variables that go into loading these prospects, contacts, and making sure that you serve them up to your team in the most efficient manner. So the first one is just the best day to make contact. There's a 49% difference between calling on Thursday versus Tuesday. Intuitively, you wouldn't think that, but this is based upon just loads of data that we've seen. Tuesday and Wednesday have pretty significant call patterns and kind of efficiency behaviors that you need to consider when you start loading your lists up. The kind of following this through, the best times to make contact, 4 to 5 in the afternoon. You would think that would also be different. The second best time that we're seeing is right around 8 o'clock. So this enables you, and your industry, your vertical, your employee size may be a little bit different. My point in this is saying that you have to sit down and understand look at contact rates by hour, look at them by half hour, and then turn around and build this chart for yourself. It will enable you to really do blitz hours. From what we've seen, 4 to 5 is a phenomenal blitz hour. That's when you kind of turn up the music a little bit, run some spiffs, get your managers out on the floor, have some fun with it, and then you do your training at 1 to 2 o'clock, right? And when there's traditionally low contact times. Response time. This is a big one for us, and we really preach this, and we've seen it 100 times over. you have to call quickly. There is a 400% decrease in odds of qualifying if you just wait an extra 5 minutes. And if you look, one of the things we really work on is 90% of our calls are responded to within 5 minutes, and typically we're around 2 or 3. If any of you guys have downloaded any sort of white paper from us, taken any sort of action, you will see that the team over here will call you a lot of times while you're in the midst of reading that white paper. And it freaks people out, but it impresses folks that you really have that ability to turn around and do that. One of the other things we do as a company is a response audit. So we will go through and we will conduct a blind audit on your company, and we will say, hey, look, we got a call from you guys. We placed 20 calls into your biz dev organization, and out of those, X were responded to, X were responded to in a timely manner, another Y was responded to in in X plus manner. And then persistence. This is a tough one as you look at it, because the average call attempts per rep, you can see the bottom chart there, just drops drastically, right? I mean, a lot of folks make that first call, and then it drops all the way down to 6. In reality, the optimal call number is 6, and I believe this is industry-wide. Optimal call number is 6. So many times you'll see 30% of leads are just never contacted, and so many times reps get discouraged after a call or two. They chuck that lead. They disposition it out of the system, and it's just never there. So you have to make sure that you follow the laws of persistence as well. Next slide, please. Just a quick slide on Salesforce, and Inside Sales Solution natively integrates into Salesforce, and you'll see kind of on the left-hand side our click to call, and on the bottom left, it's a little tough to see there, but our power standing solution, which really gamifies results. One of the things that's highlighted on that bottom right snapshot there is a neural score. So as these leads come through, we have something that's called that neural score that indicates the propensity to buy, the likelihood of that customer to buy. Next slide, please. Don't put dirty oil into a Ferrari, and this is one that is just really important. So now that you've got all these lists, you've optimized it, you've told people when to call, you load leads with a purpose. You can see on the right-hand side, we create a campaign for every list load that we do, whether it's from a trade show, whether it's from an event, whether it's from a list purchase, wherever it comes from. We create a process flow. We work to understand what we think conversion metrics are going to be. We create a campaign. We, create some hype around it. We market it. We get in front of the sales or the BD organization. We give them a one-page white paper on what happened, why it happened, a little bit about the event, and the type of people they're calling on, and we really try to package each one of those leads with a purpose. And we let them know, hey, for the next week, here's what we're focused on. You optimize your lead distribution. We talked about that a little bit earlier. And then a clean operational cadence. Adjust unfavorable trends. And you'll notice I said trends in here. You can't play the game of whack-a-mole. So many times you see people that, hey, one day calls were down or one day conversions were down, and all of a sudden we've got 12 initiatives launched behind that. You can't play whack-a-mole. You have to look at trends. Drive visibility up and down the ranks. This is one that if done appropriately, kind of aligns your leadership team, your reps, very, very directly. And if you sit down, I'll give you an example from a past company that we had one of our senior executives come into one of the call centers that I was running, and he awarded one of my reps $1,000. And she looked at him and said, hey, what's this for? And that just kills me when we're awarding, $1,000 to somebody, or we're disciplining somebody, and they've got no idea what it's for. So this is something, you'll see an example, just a real simplistic example of a balanced scorecard that, one of our customers is working with. But getting everybody in line and sharing that up the stack and sharing it, with your senior VP of sales and business development, and saying, hey, here's how I'm measuring everybody, and then sharing it with the reps, and applaud the reps that are at the top, discipline the reps, and coach the reps that are at the bottom. It's a phenomenal tool to be able to do all those and just get direct alignment. Deliver accountability quickly. So on one hand, I tell you adjust unfavorable trends, but if you see something, a bad behavior that's happened for a day, in the contact strategy world, and depending on how kind of day to day you are, it is extremely important for a rep to understand that if they miss their call dial or their call quota for a day, then day 2, maybe even interday, you need to pull them aside and find out what happened and let them know that you saw that and help them get to the call volume, conversion rates, any of those types of things. And then you coach behind the trends. One of the other pieces that's kind of a byproduct of this balanced scorecard is you get the ability to go to a rep and say, hey, look, I see you're struggling with this behavior. I see it in the scorecard. It's causing you to rank lower. Let's sit down and go through some ideas on how we get that better. And by the way, this is, the example we included in here is a rep level. There is absolutely another level that goes to your managers as well that rates and ranks your managers. And then tightly hand off to sales. This is also one that sometimes gets a little kludgy, and sales pushes back. This is not the quality. Oh, I'm too busy. I mean, I've heard 100 excuses in here, but it's extremely important that the business development and sales organization are tightly aligned and all singing off the same sheet of music in terms of expectations, whether it's data quality, whether it's timing of appointments, how far you go in the qualification criteria. And this is really a handshake. This is the point, in the traditional serious decision model, this is the SAL, right, the sales accepted lead. So this is the point where you turn around and you're transitioning off responsibility for that lead off to a closer. Next slide, please. So a little bit of a brag slide, and you can see here we're going to flip up a couple of different metrics here, but these are some of our key customers, and you will see revenue increases, you'll see productivity increases for some good name companies. And I guess I want to impress upon each one of you guys that doing this and doing it in a efficient manner is you really have the ability to impact your bottom line very, very quickly. You've seen it with those 5 or 6 customers, and we've got a whole host of customers behind that. So now that we've talked a little bit about contacting prospects and getting prospects in the hands of the closers, I'd like to toss it over to Chris Jones, and he can talk to you a little bit about taking that to the next step.
So why don't I pick things up right where Anil left off, and that is, okay, so Anil helps companies, and InsideSales.com helps companies figure out the right contacts, the right time to call, and increase in the number of opportunities that you can get to. So once you have an opportunity, then you need to figure out, okay, well, how do I make sure I deliver the right quote quickly and seal the deal as quickly as possible? And that's a big part of where we'll come in. So what I'd like to do is talk to you about one of our customers who's a high-tech distributor. They have highly configured products, high sales volume, short sales cycles. And if you think about a company like that, big products, lots of sales reps, probably a lot of new reps coming on. They oftentimes have a difficult time training their reps, a difficult time getting the right quote out in a good time. And what we've seen is that really weighs on the win rate. And quote turnaround and speed are certainly a huge factor in winning business these days. So if we go ahead to the next slide, we talk about, so how do we think about solving that problem? How do we think about, in a world where there's lots of products, lots of customers, lots of new sales reps, how do I accelerate getting my quotes out the door really fast and have it be a smart quote? Let's go ahead to the next one. So what we've seen the best performing companies are doing is using CPQ solutions to tame the product portfolio, a smart CPQ solution that brings automation and speed to the business. And this is really about empowering the reps in a way that they're not with many of the current systems that we see our customers having today. Go ahead to the next one. So what we've seen is that this concept of guided selling, again, using data science, as Anil talked about, but using it in the sales and quoting process. So guided selling within a CPQ solution, really we've seen eliminate the guesswork from quoting and provide reps with a really powerful engine that guides them through this quoting process that oftentimes can be manual and error prone. And make sure that they're getting the right products on the right quote and doing it the first time and doing it really fast. So let's talk a minute about the how on the next slide. So when we talk about smart CPQ, what we're really talking about is some of the benefits of a constraint engine versus a rules-based approach. And what we have seen is that based on some of the approaches that we take and we deliver for our customers, that they're able to deliver the same kind of approach that when you're, for instance, shopping in Amazon.com and you see something that pops up that customers who bought this also bought that. What they're doing is looking for patterns in all the data. They're mining the data and finding patterns. And we bring that same type of capability into our CPQ engine versus a traditional rules-based approach. So when a rep is putting together a quote, they can not only using the rules that may have been initially set up by the sales or marketing department, but it's also a self-learning system which is going to take into account more recent patterns of what combination of products were being sold and quoted together. Very, very powerful, very, very modern approach. Now on the next slide, what you'll see is really the best part. That all this is done inside a native Salesforce.com experience. And what we've seen is many of our customers have separate systems for all the different pieces of their business. And there's a huge trend within the Salesforce ecosystem, finding all the different business processes that you can map into Salesforce. So from a sales rep standpoint, I'm dialing into one system once, and I can use all the different tools that I need to get my job done, all within the Salesforce, all within a single sign-on. Very, very powerful. This is where you start to bring huge speed and cut out lots of wasted time. So quite simply, within Salesforce, as you can see in the red circle, there would be along the top part there a chameleon quote. So on the next slide, what's happening is a rep is really he's clicking into his quoting engine once he's in an opportunity. He's punching out to our CPQ, our smart CPQ application, but he feels like he's within Salesforce the entire time. So that's the really good news. So what you see here is a very visually appealing example of one of our customers and how they've put together the product catalog, which is very, very powerful, very visually appealing, as I said. And as things start to get selected, all the other things that go along with it from a bundling standpoint, based on the constraint engine and the rules engine, are going to be added on. So on the next slide, one of the most powerful things that comes along when we start to talk about science and science-driven is the price. Something that's been done since the beginning of time, having to price a product for a set of products. And what we do here is bring smart pricing into it, price optimization. And we're giving the rep a range of other customers who have the exact same buying patterns as the one you're quoting for. Here is the most recent sales transaction history. We're taking that all into account, and we're giving the rep a range. We're giving them confidence that at the moment of truth, right when they're pricing out the deal, that they can have confidence that we're taking a market-based pricing approach, and we're delivering that to the rep so he can select within that range what is the most appropriate price. And he's got confidence that that's a price that other reps have been able to get in the market. Very, very powerful. So on the next slide, then how we wrap this up, again, all within Salesforce is you can press another button, deliver the quote to the customer, deliver a proposal to the customer, deliver a contract to the customer, have the customer be able to turn around and sign that digitally and send it back and have that land back in Salesforce. All very, very powerful. So on the next slide, what's the so what? What are the business results that doing this delivers, and is the view really worth the climb? Well, I would think these results say absolutely yes, just like with what Anil was sharing. What we've seen on average is our customers have a 200 basis point margin improvement, and a lot of that is based on that smart pricing that we talked to. We see 100% channel revenue increase, and a lot of that is due to the fact that your portfolio of quotes that you're able to get with the channel because you've dramatically increased your speed through automation has shot through the roof. So that's a huge part. We've seen a huge increase in auto approvals, which drives a lot of the quote turnaround because you put rules around this, and a dramatic reduction in the time it takes to quote, and a dramatic increase in the number of quotes that a rep is able to get out the door. It's these type of benefits that have Gartner saying this type of technology is the only transformational technology that they view in the CRM category. Very, very, very powerful stuff. And on the next slide, there's more. There's one other bonus here, and that is how quickly can you react to market conditions? So the catalog that we just shared with you, one of the best things about it is that the marketing department can very quickly update and load new offers, new programs into this CPQ engine. So when you think about the onboarding time, the ramp time, how do you make sure the reps are taking into consideration all the new offers, all the new promotions, all the new quotes? Well, we've just figured a way to automate that. So your ramp time, your learning curve is dramatically reduced to next to nothing. So with that, Russ, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. So now it's time for some Q&A. So for the first question, I think this is probably addressed more towards Chris. I've worked for companies where getting reps to even use Salesforce as a CRM properly has been an issue. How do you get a sales team to embrace new tools and processes?
Yeah, that's a great question, Russ. What we've seen is that, for instance, when you roll out a new CRM application, there has to be something in it for those sales reps. There has to be some benefits. It has to make it easier for them to get their job done. And when you combine CPQ with CRM, what you're doing is you're empowering the reps to get their quotes done. The best practice that we've seen is that 85% of the quotes are going out the door without any deal desk or management intervention. So you've just empowered the rep with a way to do things a whole lot faster. And if you're giving them a tool that's better than the one they had before, user adoption sure is going to go up. You're also giving them a tool that's going to put more money in their pocket because you're giving them insights from a data science standpoint around what the market-based price really should be that they could get. So you're taking the guesswork out of the quotation process and, again, helping them increase their deal size.
Thanks, Chris. This is a question for Anil, and it's interesting. It's something we've talked about internally here with other members of sales and marketing. Is what organization should a business development or BDR, ADR group roll up to, sales or marketing? Does it matter?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I will say that I've seen them in mostly sales organizations, but a new trend here over the past 6 months to a year has been shifting them into marketing to more tightly align with some of the initiatives that marketing's driving. In the end, there are pros and cons to keeping them in both organizations. More importantly than where the organization sits is the partnership between the two larger sales and marketing organizations. As I mentioned the handoffs earlier, whether that biz dev organization sits in marketing or with sales, that handoff process has to be extremely tight, extremely defined, and it has to be a partnership versus a, hey, I'm going to toss a prospect over the wall. In the end, I would say that it is contingent upon, quite candidly, whoever wants to lead it within the sales or marketing organizations and who has the kind of skill set and appetite to help drive that. The partnership, to me, is more important than where the physical reporting happens.
Thanks, Anil. I got another question for Chris. Does a product like CPQ require specific expertise on the back end to manage? Can a Salesforce admin run it?
Yeah, what we've typically seen is it's someone in marketing, in product marketing that runs that because it has to do with the product catalog, the product portfolio. So from a complexity standpoint, not complex, does not require an IT person to run it. It's all configurable. From a where does the management and ongoing operation usually sit? It usually sits in the marketing department.
Thanks. And for Anil, here's a question for you. What are some key metrics that you should use to measure the business development organization on?
Great. So initially, and again, depending on how transactional your business is versus strategic, and what segment you're serving, the first one is always an activity level metric, and most of the times people revert to dials. There's also kind of offshoots of that, with emails. But the second piece, and probably the more important piece, is around conversions. How many people do you talk to? How many dials do you make versus how many people you talk to when they're on the phone? How many do you convert to an appointment? And then kind of taking that through all the way through the funnel. The last piece that I would say is one of the most important metrics as we start driving the partnership between business development and sales is closed revenue. So if you look at it, if the partnership is happening on a day in, day out basis, or week in, week out basis, and the business development team is sitting down with the sales team and talking through the opportunities that are sitting out there, talking through how they can penetrate through different hierarchies within an organization, then really the business development organization has strong influence on how and when deals close. So I also like to measure the business development organization on closed ACV or TCV.
Okay, thank you. We have time for one more question, and this looks like it's geared towards Anil too. What is the best way to ensure a partnership between business development and the sales team?
Yeah, I always lean on comp. I feel like compensation and making sure that the comp plans are wholly aligned. The salespeople typically have a fairly consistent comp plan across most organizations. To me, the comp plan opportunity comes within business development and comping across that activity, that conversion, and ACV. And if you drive more of that money towards ACV, you'll start seeing the behavior change away from just flat out, dialing for dollars to more strategic conversations that are actually driving revenue for the company.
Thanks. So I'd like to thank everyone for attending today, and special thanks to Anil and Chris for speaking. All attendees will receive a copy of today's presentation deck and a link to the recording. And don't forget, next week the series continues, same time, same place. Next week we have Zora and Pros talking about some best practices in sales and billing for subscription business and the subscription economy.